The signal was not a whisper but a roar, an encoded pulse of power that tore through the Kuiper belt like a blade. Satellites caught it. Probes triangulated it. Within hours, it became impossible to deny. Something massive was coming, and it wasn't from any human colony or known celestial anomaly. At NORAD command beneath Cheyenne Mountain, General Teresa Yamaguchi stared at the data feed with unreadable eyes. Around her, analysts murmured with confusion and awe. The object, estimated at over 60 kilometers in length, was decelerating. It wasn't a rock. It wasn't a rogue ship. It was a choice. In orbit over Earth 3 days later, that choice took form. A vessel of impossible geometry, its surface a patchwork of reflective obsidian and pulsing veins of unknown alloy. Every nation on Earth had sent their finest to the spaceborne summit. Generals, presidents, ambassadors, scientists, priests. And one ghost. Colonel Rebecca Vaughn stood apart from the crowd, as if by gravitational mandate. Her armor, crimson and black, bore no insignia of nation or rank, only a subtle pattern of burn marks and claw scratches no cleaning team had dared remove. Her cape, a defiant rendition of the old American flag, swayed behind her like a war banner. The alien delegation materialized within a halo of ionized gas. They shimmered into existence, towering, serpentine beings clad in ritualistic armor that flexed and clicked with every breath. The leader stepped forward. 2 meters taller than the tallest human present, his presence was a calculated violation of the human psychological threshold. His voice did not come from his throat but from the air itself, vibrating directly in the auditory centers of every mind present. "I am General Vekthor of the Jurkan Empire," the voice declared. "You are now under dominion. Pay tribute and survive. Refuse, and we will flense your species from the bone of this world." Silence rippled across the chamber like an airless tide. The diplomats hesitated, eyes darting to one another, lips parting but not speaking. The military leaders tensed, weighing risk. Earth's president inhaled to respond. Vaughn beat him to it. "No." The word landed like a thunderclap. Vekthor turned, curious. "Explain. You bark demands like a dog that's never been kicked. Let me be clear. We don't pay tribute. We kill tyrants." Her voice was flat, unflinching. "You threaten humanity? I hope you've brought more than a parade float and an ego." Whispers turned to alarm. Security personnel flinched. Cameras zoomed in. Vekthor stepped forward, towering over Vaughn. "You speak for Earth?" "No. I speak for consequence." The Jurkan general studied her. His eyes, black, lidless, gleamed with a mixture of interest and disdain. He reached one clawed hand toward her face in a gesture half curious, half threatening. She didn't flinch. "I will remember you," he said. "You'll remember me last," she replied. When the aliens left, they left a countdown. 5 days. Tribute or destruction. In the subterranean command centers beneath Washington and Beijing and Moscow, panic masqueraded as planning. Military satellites were repositioned. Orbital railguns warmed up. The lunar defense grid came online for the first time since its construction. Rebecca Vaughn stood in silence, arms crossed, in a war room buried 50 meters under Nevada rock. A holographic projection of the Jurkan dreadnought hovered above the table. Around her, high-ranking officers debated probability metrics and casualty forecasts. "You understand what you've done?" General Marcus Patel asked her finally. "Yes," she said. "They might have spared us." "They wouldn't have." He hesitated. "They might have." "Do you want to be their cattle, Marcus?" "No." "Then shut up and prepare to slaughter wolves." The president appeared on the main screen. "Colonel Vaughn, I understand you've taken a position." She didn't respond. He nodded, as if that were answer enough. "You're being granted command of Special Operations Command 1. You'll coordinate directly with Joint Interplanetary Defense. All global jurisdictions. You'll have what you need." "I need command override." The president blinked. "Explain." If politicians hesitate, we lose. I want full strategic autonomy. He didn't answer immediately. Then, granted. God help us. Vaughn turned and walked out without another word. Within hours, her team was assembled. Lieutenant Cam Torres, Close Quarters Combat and Demolitions, born on series, raised by pirates, reformed by the Corps. Sergeant Ilya Kovalenko, cyber warfare and AI suppression expert, responsible for hacking into a rogue AI cathedral and turning its priest bots against each other. Captain Asha Rao, exosuit engineer and sniper. Her bullets never missed, though she swore at her rifle like it was a misbehaving child. They were killers. Ghosts. The kind of people you only called when the mission was already too late. We're not here to defend, Vaughn told them on their first briefing. We're here to make the enemy bleed. Torres grinned. Finally. A mission that doesn't involve saving anyone. Asha leaned forward. Intel says they're using entropic plasma and gravitational torsion field. Anything we have that can even scratch that. We don't hit their armor, Vaughn said. We hit their arrogance. For the next 4 days, humanity transformed. Factories once used for cars now printed antimatter cores. Civilian satellites were reprogrammed into kinetic kill arrays. Spaceports became military hubs. Earth's moons turned into bunkers. Still, the public knew only fragments. Peace negotiations ongoing, said the headlines. Alien envoys in talks, lied the feeds. But rumors spread. Whispers of a red-armored soldier walking into the alien's ship and leaving with a death sentence in her eyes. Stories of Earth's enemies rallying behind her, not because they trusted her, but because they feared what she might do if Earth lost. In orbit, the Zhurkan ship remained still. Watching. Waiting. On the 5th day, they broadcast again. The signal took over every screen, every device, every feed. Vecthor's face filled the airwaves. Time is ended. Tribute is unpaid. Prepare. Then silence. Colonel Vaughn stood at the viewing deck of the USS Dauntless, watching the dreadnought rotate into an attack vector. Around her, the fleet powered up. Modular battleships, drone swarms, stealth frigates. Not enough. Not by half. Ilya stepped beside her. We're outgunned. We've been outgunned since we climbed out of trees. What's the plan? She looked at the enemy vessel. Same as always. Get in. Kill things. Make them regret curiosity. Alarms flared. The sky lit up. And the war began. The first kinetic strike came from the dark. A spear of superheated plasma lanced out from the Zhurkan dreadnought, crossing thousands of kilometers in milliseconds. It tore through the Earth's orbital defense ring, obliterating 3 satellites and turning the Moon's northern installation into a molten scar. The USS Dauntless shuddered as shockwaves reached her hull. Colonel Vaughn stood motionless on the command deck, eyes fixed on the crimson data blooming across the tactical displays. Not panic. Not fear. Cold, brutal calculation. Report, she said. Lunar Base Alpha is gone. 82 confirmed dead. Communications with the Asia-Pacific grid have been disrupted, Asha Rao reported, fingers dancing across the control console. Enemy movement? They're deploying atmospheric infiltration probes, Ilya said, tapping into the feed. Pods. Small fast. Dispersed entry. Targeted insertions, military bases, power hubs, orbital elevators. They're not here to talk, Cam muttered. They never were. The Dauntless turned, her vector thrusters igniting as Vaughn issued silent orders. Across the void, Earth's fragmented fleet engaged. They weren't polished. They weren't unified. But they were human. A destroyer from the African Confederation, its hull still painted with the scars of past civil wars, opened fire with a jury-rigged magnetic accelerator. A swarm of American drone fighters cut across the dark like silverfish, harrying a massive Zhurkan carrier. Chinese orbital mines, long denied, long hidden, detonated in sequence, catching an enemy frigate in a chain of invisible knives. But the Zhurkan were built for this. Centuries of subjugation campaigns had hardened them. Their vessels moved with eerie precision, coordinating without delay or panic. Where humans bled, the Jur-Khan advanced, clinical and overwhelming. Vaughn didn't flinch. Vector burn. Prepare for breach, she ordered. The Dauntless plunged toward Earth's upper atmosphere, its reinforced hull glowing under heat and friction. Her mission wasn't to defend. She wasn't built to sit behind lines and wait for good odds. The Jur-Khan had deployed elite drop troops in Central Europe, too close to the command center in Berlin. That couldn't stand. As they descended, Cam armed the dropsuit modules. You ever think we're just suicide wrapped in patriotism? Ilya grunted. Better than cowardice wrapped in diplomacy. You two gonna flirt all the way down? Asha snapped, locking in her rifle's 0 point. The hatch hissed open. Wind. Heat. Roaring clouds. Then silence, until the suit's HUD crackled to life and gravity took over. They dropped through ash-colored skies, debris streaking past. Below them, Prague burned. Alien war forms, tall, insectal horrors wrapped in plasma armor, swept the streets with energy blades and pulse weapons. Civilians scattered. Some fought back with stolen rifles and desperation. Most died. Vaughn hit the ground first, her armor absorbing the impact in a hiss of compressed foam and shock gel. The Jur-Khan nearest to her turned, raised a weapon, and died as she crushed its chest with a single punch amplified by servos. Cam landed beside her, guns blazing, turning 2 more into smoking ruin. The team moved like a scalpel, silent, fast, precise. They weren't here to liberate the city. They were here to cut off the alien command node transmitting from the Old Town district. Vaughn led them through shattered alleyways and fire-lit corridors. Every shot she fired counted. Every movement was deliberate. Her mind tracked positions, angles, trajectories, data and death in equal measure. Command node is under the astronomical clock tower, Ilya said, eyes glowing with uplink data. Heavily shielded. 30 enemy contacts minimum. We go in quiet, Vaughn said. They didn't. The first breach charge turned the side of the tower into glass dust. Asha's sniper round dropped a sentry mid-roar. Cam tossed a concussion grenade into the breach and followed it with a blade between ribs. Ilya darted between cover, jamming alien sensors and turning their own targeting systems against them. Vaughn moved at the center. A storm wrapped in blood and armor. She reached the node, a spire of pulsing alien tech, half organic, half machine, and plunged a neural spike into it. Data screamed into Ilya's system. We've got coordinates, he gasped. Planet-side command vessels. Multiple. Relays. We can shut them down if we... A roar cut him off. A Jur-Khan shock trooper, twice the size of its kin, charged. Vaughn intercepted it mid-step. Her armor groaned. The creature swung a blade of phase-shifted matter, cutting the air in unnatural ways. She ducked, drove her gauntlet up into its throat and ripped. Blood, black and smoking, splattered the walls. She turned. Extract. The tower collapsed behind them. They boarded a human extraction flyer minutes later, its pilot wide-eyed with disbelief. You're Vaughn. The one who told them no. She didn't answer. Back aboard the Dauntless, the data they had pulled began reshaping the war. Using the Jur-Khan's own communication protocols, Earth's forces began jamming their orbital coordination. Satellites scrambled command packets. Ground teams began targeting not just soldiers, but signal carriers and decision node. Humanity didn't match the enemy in numbers or tech, but in chaos they thrived. Vaughn's team became a myth among the troop. In New York, a pinned battalion heard rumors she'd personally assassinated 3 alien commanders in their sleep. In Tokyo, soldiers painted her silhouette on tank. On Mars, resistance cells claimed she was already fighting on the Jur-Khan homeworld, because how else could the enemy be so scared? They called her the Boogeyman. Vaughn hated it. This isn't about fear, she told General Patel during a rare moment of quiet. It's about survival. Patel, watching the battlefield flicker on the screen, shook his head. To them, there's no difference. Asha sat sharpening her knife in the Dauntless armory. We've got 3 days until their main ground invasion wave hits Earth. Not if we hit them first, Vaughn said. You planning another suicide run? Cam asked with a grin. It worked the first 2 times. Ilya looked up from his console. We've located something. A mobile command ship in low orbit over the Pacific. Heavily shielded. But what? It's using a centralized AI for its targeting systems. If we breach it, we blind their orbital support. Can we do it? A moment of silence. No, Ilya said. But you can. Vaughn stood. Prep the suits. Burn Vector. We hit it tonight. The Dauntless roared toward orbit again. The Zhurkan had grown cautious. They began pulling back their high-value assets, clustering them together. It was a mistake. In clinging to order, they gave humanity the one thing they needed, a pattern to break. The assault on the command ship was madness. The Dauntless took heavy fire on approach, shields flaring, hull plating crumpling. The boarding team, just Vaughn and her squad, ejected directly into a decompression channel ripped open by earlier battles. They entered the beast through fire. Inside, the air tasted of ozone and rot. Alien corridors writhed with living wiring. Zhurkan troopers swarmed like ants defending a hive. Vaughn didn't slow. Her team carved a path to the AI core, a bulbous, throbbing chamber guarded by 4 elite sentinels. Ilya adjusted his new interface gloves, fingers dancing over projected Zhurkan glyph. I've cracked their encryption layer. We can spoof identification tags for exactly 16 minutes once we're inside their hull. After that, we're exposed. Plenty of time, Cam said, loading fresh microdetonators into his gauntlet rig. I don't need more than 6. Vaughn looked to each of them in turn. She didn't speak inspiration. She never had. The unspoken contract among them was blood and survival. Words were for the living, and they were about to walk among the dead. The plan was pure audacity. They would breach the Zhurkan flagship through a maintenance bay under the middeck, the only portion not shielded by layered armor. Vaughn's team would insert via kinetic drop pod, disable the core life support algorithms, then force Vector into a direct confrontation. No negotiations. No capture. No mercy. The Independence launched the pod like a bullet. Vaughn felt her spine compress, her heart seize for half a second as the world blurred into acceleration. Silence followed, then impact. Metal screamed as the pod carved into the alien hull. Before the dust settled, Vaughn blew the hatch and stormed forward. The interior of the ship was darker than before, lit by cold veins of white energy. The architecture twisted like grown coral, pulsating with life. The air tasted wrong, sterile and hungry. Zhurkan warriors waited. They reacted slower than they should have. The spoofing code worked. Vaughn's squad struck before the enemy could recalibrate. Asha's rounds tore through plasma shields. Cam's explosives dismembered entire patrols in single, focused blasts. Ilya shut down an entire corridor's gravity with a flick of his wrist, sending defenders spiraling into the bulkhead. They were ghosts in the machine. 6 minutes in, the spoof tags failed. That's when the real war began. A monstrous klaxon echoed through the flagship as the Zhurkan systems recognized the intruders. Drones swarmed. Heavy infantry dropped from the ceiling like armored wasps. Vaughn didn't slow. She fought with a precision that turned motion into violence and violence into art. She broke the spine of a blade wielder in one motion, parried another's strike with the flat of her armored wrist, and drove her knife through its throat. She moved through fire and screams with the rhythm of someone who had long ago accepted what she was. Cam went down first. A plasma lance caught him mid-leap. He managed to plant a shaped charge before he hit the ground, and took 3 Zhurkan with him. His last breath was laughter. Asha pulled Vaughn aside. That was our entry path. Extraction's gone. We don't need an exit, Vaughn said. Ilya's voice came through comms, strained. I'm near the core. But it's shielded. Adaptive lock. It's rewriting itself every 8 seconds. Then rewrite faster, Vaughn replied. She and Asha moved forward, carving a line through defenders, their boots clanging on the alien alloy floor that seemed to hate them with every step. The deeper they moved, the more organic the ship became. It pulsed. It breathed. It knew they were inside. At the heart of the ship, the throne room awaited. Not a command bridge. A throne. It rose from the floor like a fong, wrapped in bone-white structures and veins of living metal. And seated atop it, armored in black adorned with silver war marks, was General Vector. He rose as they entered. Taller in person. Broader. His eyes burned with an ancient certainty that death could not come for him because he had always been its servant. You again, he said. Vaughn leveled her weapon. Did you miss me? I expected surrender. You expected wrong. He didn't draw a weapon. Instead, he stepped down, towering over her. Asha moved to flank, too late. Vector lashed out with a speed that defied his size, backhanding Asha into the wall. Her armor cracked on impact. She didn't rise. Vaughn engaged. It wasn't a duel. It was collision. Her punches broke sound. His claws tore sparks from her plating. He struck with the fury of a star and the elegance of a veteran butcher. She countered with feral precision, never giving him the kill shot. You think your species is special, he growled, smashing her into a pillar. You're not. You are noise. Temporary. Forgotten. She slammed her forehead into his jaw, ducked, rolled, and rose with a blade drawn from her calf holster. Funny, she said. I was about to say the same to you. He charged. She didn't dodge. They collided again. She let the blow land. Let the claws pierce her shoulder. Used the proximity to drive her blade deep into the plates between his ribs. He roared, stumbled, caught her by the throat, and lifted her. I will break you, he hissed. Do it, she rasped, voice fading. Then the ship shook. Ilya's voice crackled through her calm, cores overloaded. You've got 90 seconds. Get out or make it count. Vaughn smiled. She pressed the detonator embedded in her palm. A micro-explosive in her belt discharged, forcing Vector to drop her. She hit the ground hard, rolled, came up limping, but alive. The general roared, staggering, bleeding black ichor. This is not over, he spat. No, she said. It's just your turn to be afraid. She charged. He tried to block. She feinted low, reversed her grip, and drove her blade through his throat. He staggered. Clawed at her. Missed. She held his gaze as the light left his eyes. He collapsed, his crown rolling across the floor, dented and silent. Vaughn turned. Ilya was at the core chamber, trying to stabilize the overload. You need to go, he said. You can't stop it? Not anymore. She looked back once at Vector's body. Then we end it here. Ilya smiled faintly. Hell of a way to go out. They stood side by side as the core detonated. Aboard the USS Independence, orbiting just outside the flagship's radius, sensors screamed warnings too late. A flare of impossible light consumed the enemy vessel. Then silence. All across Earth and the skies beyond, Zhurkan forces paused. Then they broke. Leaderless. Disoriented. Demoralized. Humanity struck. Over the next 72 hours, Earth forces reclaimed cities, moons, orbitals. Alien ships surrendered. Others fled. A new voice filled the galactic comnet, a broadcast from Earth's United Command, showing Vector's ruined corp. This is what happens, the voice declared, when you mistake humanity for prey. Colonel Rebecca Vaughn's death was confirmed, then later contested. No remains were found. Some claimed to have seen her in distant colonies, others heard whispers of a shadow that killed warlords in the dark. They called her legend. The Boogeyman. Humanity became more than a survivor. It became a force. The Zhurkan Empire crumbled from within, its tributaries defecting, its authority shattered. On Earth, peace came with scars. Cities rebuilt. Names carved in steel and fire. But in every soldier's eye, a spark remained, that quiet, fierce knowledge that no matter how vast the galaxy, no matter how many empires came calling, there was one lesson they would all learn. Humans do not kneel. And somewhere, out beyond the edge of known space, a figure in red and black watched a new dawn rise over a foreign world, her cape still tattered, her armor still scarred, her knife still sharp. Waiting,